Forum. Would you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. For those who are present, would ask if you have a noise-making device to turn it off or to silent mode so as not to interfere with our communications. And I'll verify that mine's off this morning. So thank you all very much. We do have one presentation to make this morning. We'll do so at this time. I'm going to ask Carol Gonzalez to join me at the podium. We have a proclamation this morning recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Mid-America Regional Council. Carol serves as the Director of Finance and Administration. Mid-America Regional Council was formed 50 years ago, and it's comprised, membership is of 9 counties in the metropolitan area, as well as 119 cities are represented in that organization. And one of the objectives is to work with the leadership of those entities in local government and provide advice, suggestions, and sometimes resolutions to issues facing the region or a particular county. I think also, Carol, that many of the federal funds involving transportation and those kind of activities also come through the Mid-America Regional Council. So David Warm is the Executive Director of Mid-America Regional Council. David came to Mid-America Regional Council in 1990 as the Executive Director. He was a former city manager of Liberty, Missouri. So there is a long history, and this year at the annual meeting on June 10th, that there will be a celebration of that 50 years of service to local government and the metropolitan communities. So Carol, I'll present this proclamation to you, and if you have any comments you'd like to make, sure, welcome to do so. I should say this. Carol is no stranger to Johnson County. She served as with the city of Shawnee for 19 years, and 12 of those years as city manager. So congratulations and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'm very proud to be here today representing the Mid-America Regional Council. As you can tell from the chairman's comments, it's an amazing organization that I was proud to join about 5 years ago. We couldn't do the work that we do without the 9 counties and 119 cities. And so we appreciate very much Johnson County's role in that, your engagement, participation, your leadership on the board, both from elected officials, Commissioner Hanslick, Commissioner Fast currently serving on the board, and Chairman Eilert, and also from your staff members, with many of Johnson County staff who serve lead roles in these regional committees, working with professional staff members across the region to develop solutions and resolutions to all sorts of issues and plan for a future. So we hope to see you all on June 10th. We will also be honoring Chairman Eilert for his long tenure in public service and regionalism at that meeting also. And we look forward to 50 more years of continued collaboration with the county. So thank you.
Carol, thank you very much. I should also note that Johnson County has 2 votes on the board, and I've been on the board for several years, and my schedule is such that sometimes I cannot be there all the time. So Commissioner Fast from the 1st District represents me in my absence, as Janae Hanslick, 4th District Representative, is also an official board member. So, yep. Carol, thank you very much. Give David our regards. I understand he had a scheduling issue, and you guys are kind of breaking up the tour of the metro
We're
area.
making a tour. It's fun. It's been
Okay, very
fun,
good.
so.
Well, we'd like to take a photo. Okay,
you.
thank you again, Carol.
Thanks.
Give David my regards.
I will. Thank you.
At this time, we'll turn to the public comment portion of our agenda. If there's, we have both virtual as well as in-person comments this morning. Commentators should limit their comments to 2 minutes. For those who are speaking in person from the podium, there is a modem, and your timing will be reflected on that modem. If speakers go beyond the 2 minutes, then the chair is required to interrupt and ask you to conclude your comments. So we'll start with the virtual commentators, and the clerk will please read the first speaker.
Chair, virtually we have Stephanie Berlin. Stephanie Berlin.
Stephanie Berlin, 972 East 121st Place, Olathe, Kansas, also candidate for the County Commissioner seat of the 5th District. These questions and comments are in regards to the motor vehicle refund audit report that is presented later in the meeting. I could not choose to speak to it at that point. It wasn't an option. It is written on page 6 of the report that Kansas state law governs the process of motor vehicle refunds, and TTV gets direction from your legal department to ensure compliance. My question to audit and to legal is Johnson County complying with this law? And why are we the only county in Kansas in which refunds are calculated from the date of sale versus the date the application is processed in the office? What legal basis are you using to come to this conclusion, and what did the state of Kansas say? Based on my evidence, we do not comply, and we do not calculate the refunds like Sedgwick, Riley, Wyandotte, Douglas counties. Why is this so important? Sales dates precede application dates. You will probably get a bigger refund using a sale date. The report states there is no fraud. Where is the testing to prove this? How many sale dates did you verify? What did you use to substantiate the sale? Title, bill of sale, loan agreement? Surely you just didn't use the written date on the application. That is not proper testing. Can sales dates be made up? Yep. Would this compliance be a different reason to apply for a refund in JOCO versus other counties? Probably. We should demand better. Demand evidence to support the statement made in this audit reports. Based on this methodology, you looked at roughly 1/3 of 1%, 37 out of 15,000, $2 million in refunds. I contest the sufficiency of this evidence and lack of results to form a reasonable opinion. There's bias deferring to legal.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Now we have Debbie Detmer. Debbie Detmer.
Debbie, are you there? We had difficulties last week with this speaker.
Debbie, can you unmute yourself, please?
All right, let's go ahead to the next speaker and we'll come back.
In person, we now have Carol Houtman. Carol Houtman.
Yes, you can come to the podium, please. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Carol
Oh,
Hotman.
excuse me. Actually, you're for item number 3. Is that right? For the Hedge Lane Apartments?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're not to that item yet. I spoke wrong. I apologize. We now have Jim Smitt. Jim Smitt.
Morning. My name's Jim Schmidt. I live at 15627 West 80th Terrace for the last 34 years, and I am speaking on behalf of the Good Faith Network's Ending Homelessness team. I give almost all my time to serving the homeless in this community, and it's become my life's work. Among other things, my wife Jennifer and I are volunteers in charge of the overnight operations at Project 1020. This means that during the cold weather months, we spend every night at that shelter. So no one knows more than I do that Johnson County needs a year-round 24/7 shelter that I've seen way too many lives cut short because we don't have one. But make no mistake, when the Good Faith Network calls on this body to step out in leadership to end homelessness, we're not just talking about a shelter. A shelter itself does not end homelessness. We're calling for a comprehensive plan to end homelessness in this community, a plan that creates emergency shelter and a system that lets people exit the shelter and build a stable life for themselves. And we know from communities like Bergen County, New Jersey, that ending homelessness is possible if you make a plan. The Housing Subcommittee has been meeting for a year and has offered results and recommendations, but in order to solve homelessness, we need a comprehensive plan that is firmly grounded in housing first principles. Due to the urgency of this need, we respectfully request that the Housing Subcommittee institute regular standing meetings that are open to the public to ensure consistent progress towards ending homelessness in Johnson County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, now we will try Debbie Detmer again. Debbie Detmer.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I am Debbie Detmer, a grandmother of 8 and a retired registered nurse. Last week, I gave a May 10th report of the New York Times stating a congressional investigation on the Emergent plant was going on. The Emergent plant furnished the J&J and the AstraZeneca jabs. With HHS and the CDC and the FDA knowingly and protecting these drug companies for 7 months and still giving out 25 million contaminated jabs, while continually calling them safe and effective to the people from April to November in 21, when they finally closed the plant. Of course, we have Pfizer. Instead of saying that the shots are a failure and not effective, they just admit that the shots waned after 2 months and come on in and get another. As more tragic Pfizer data and of adverse effects and reports come out with court-mandated data released monthly. The major mRNA therapy problems are not disclosed by Pfizer or the federal regulators or the government entities until long after the fact. Dr. Lemasters released on May 17th a COVID update, where he finally admits that natural immunity after infection of COVID even exists. Of course, he pretends that was only with the Omicron variant, and we have always known that natural immunity is the best protection. These jabs are not safe or effective. Fear is how they are controlling you and pushing these drugs for profit. The truth will keep us safe and free. And I have another question. By the way, are you planning to give $1 million to all the small businesses around like you intend to address today? Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Now we have
Thank you
David.
very much.
Now we have David Dreher. David Dreher.
Hello, and thank you for letting me talk with you for a few minutes. My name's David Dreher. My address is 7611 Iker Drive, Shawnee, Kansas. And I'm here today to highlight, I hope, what is an urgent need in Johnson County, and that is for a mental health crisis stabilization center. I represent myself, and these are my thoughts and my ideas, but I'm also affiliated with the Good Faith Network. Why? Why do we need a mental health stabilization crisis center? We don't need any more evidence that mental health issues in our county, in our state, in our country are at the top of the list. The incidence of mental health episodes are on the rise. The navigation of mental health episode is undoable in Johnson County. Good people each step of the way. The police are good. The Johnson County mental health people are good. The treatment facilities are good people. They are all completely overwhelmed. If you attend any of those facilities, you'll find out they are working 12, 15-hour days. They're underpaid, understaffed, and they don't have the resources. A person in the midst of a mental health crisis is not equipped to figure out on their own how to navigate, where to go, how things work, how they start. How do I know all these things? We have a family member who suffers from severe mental health. I've met with the police. I've met with the caseworkers. I've met with the hospitals. My family has met with the Johnson County District Attorney. We've met with the personal attorneys, and we've met with Johnson County Mental Health. Again, reiterate, all good people. But they all tell you, you need to go over there. We need a facility that brings this all into focus.
I'm going to have to ask you to conclude your remarks. Thank you very
And
much.
it's urgent.
Thank you
We
very much.
can't wait. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Now we have Lisa Happy. Lisa Happy.
Good morning, Lisa Huppy, 17535 Edgerton Road. The Code of Ethics for Johnson County Government is intended to establish standards of conduct expected of those persons who act for or on behalf of the public in the performance of all governmental duties and responsibilities. Government service and public sector employment is a public trust, and those who serve the public as part of its government must perform and discharge their duties consistent with the highest moral principles, serving always the best interest of the county and its citizens. This is your code of ethics. This is your purpose. Safe and sustainable home ownership is a right of all people. Your decision at your June 6, 2 p.m. public hearing regarding utility-scale solar facility regulations will determine if you respect the right for the citizens of rural Johnson County to have this safe and sustainable home ownership. Not only will this decision affect the property values for homeowners, it will affect their life that they want to live, their right to enjoy their personal property. It will also affect business owners who are all over that area. Enright Gardens, Whitetail Winery, Prairie Farm Meats, Brooklyn Hall Wedding Venue, Lewis Farms, Grazing Angus Cattle, Norris Dairy Farm, one of the last dairy farms in the state of Kansas or in Johnson County, all of which are located in rural Johnson County, where NextEra is considering locating a 2,000-acre utility-scale solar facility with a setback from dwellings of 250 feet. Right? That's terrible. You think that won't devalue your property? Think again. As a realtor, I know location is the most important thing to a buyer. You're going to ruin not only the beautiful agricultural character of Johnson County, but destroy home values and possibly disallow people to even be able to sell their home when the utility-scale solar facilities are on 3 sides of their property. Please consider this. And you also have the option of saying no solar in rural Johnson County, as your consultant also stated in the report, may be a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have Rebecca Shippey. Rebecca Shippey.
Good morning, Rebecca Shipley. My address is on record. I own a few businesses in this county that employs a couple of dozen, and because we are also struggling with rapid inflationary cost, I would like to obtain a $1 million loan with 0 interest, no strings attached. Maybe I can pay it over 15 years, but we can reassess the balloon payment later. And where do I go to sign up? Sounds ridiculous, right? Like I'd have the gall to ask for that kind of money, taxpayer money. Yet I read this asks are being made of this dais, and the dais is considering. So on behalf of all business owners in Johnson County, where's our million? Over my 25 years of adulthood in this county, property taxes have increased 290%. That's 3 times inflation plus population. It feels like this county creates a problem through excessive taxation and then attempts to solve the problem with excessive taxes collected. And then in the end, the property owners are the ones continually squeezed to foot the bill. Home values have increased and mill levies have been adjusted, but every year, net taxes increase. Taxes went up again. Look at the apartments this year that had a net tax gain of 17%. Do you think the apartment holders pay that? No, all rent went up. You created the problem. Stop taxing properties on unrealized gains. Some of our citizens on fixed incomes are paying more per year in taxes than they ever did on their mortgage. Add to that Biden inflation on food and fuel, and these poor folks are being displaced out of our community and away from their families. This county has a spending problem, and you and other governing bodies need to spend it like it's not your money, and it needs to be reined in. Cut taxes, cut spending, and help your citizens, your constituents, and not corporations that don't vote for you.
Thank you.
Now we have Jim Mansfield. Jim Mansfield.
Good morning. I live in zip code 66219. If you need my address, I think I signed in. I came here because I got a note from Ms. O'Hara about the $1 million tax increment financing for the housing. From what I know about that and talking to other people here, I think that's a bad idea, and I would vote no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Now we have Mike Round. Mike Round.
Good morning. My name is Mike Round, and I live in Overland Park. And I wanted to make a brief comment about the briefing sheet. The briefing sheet, I think, is an excellent idea. And in general says, we've got a problem. Here's our intended solution. Here's our due diligence to achieve this solution. Here's our recommendation. And I think it's a very good document. One thing missing, though, to me is an explicit statement that says, if we take this action, not just what are the positive things we expect to happen, but what are the negative consequences if we do this. So I wanted to use the Hedge Lane apartments as an example. When you all make a decision, usually there's a level of transparency or checks and balances in place to make sure there has been due diligence. In the case of Hedge Lane, as I understand it, you have 2 developers who have said, we're going to do this, and then suddenly said, we can't do this unless you give us $1 million more. Now, this strikes me as, without casting any moral aspersions, there's a problem with this. I mean, and if you grant the $1 million, it puts you, again, speaking no ill will towards anybody, but it puts your future members in a conflict, because if you agree, as an elected body, now you've got people who say, whether I like this person or I want to donate to get their vote, it puts you in a position where, should I vote because I agree with it, or should I vote because they've given me money? That's it. To me, a predictable consequence.
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you very much.
Dealing with this $1 million issue.
Thank you.
Poorly said, but.
Excuse me, your time.
Mr. Chairman. Now we have, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, just as a point of clarification, some of the speakers during the general public comment are related to the $1 million investment in Hedge Lane Apartments. Should those be more appropriately
moved over to when we get to that discussion item?
Well, there will be an opportunity when that issue comes for those who are interested in that item to speak. So again, would encourage the public comment to be comments in other policy areas rather than that particular item. Thank you.
Now we have Jane Kanoki. Jane Kanoki.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jane Kanoki, 23535 West 74th Street, Shawnee, Kansas. I'm here today to talk about the solar farm regulations and to say that the solar farm regulations that you voted on in your April 4th meeting do provide safe and sustainable properties, despite what...
I'm sorry. Please show courtesy to the speakers. Those of us on the dais do that and would request audience members to react in a similar way. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you.
We'll start over again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I want to go back to Beau Bouvet's testimony in front of you because I got carried away with the garden solar farm, as he described, that was located in Maricopa County, Arizona, within the city boundaries. So I wondered what was happening with the rural values of that. So here's what Commissioner Allenbrand said. She said, "Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today." That was towards Beau. So just because sometimes my brain, I just want to clarify. So we've talked about a lot of development that's possibly going on in the unincorporated areas. So I'm assuming that if a farmer decides that he is going to produce this solar, in the meantime, while development is going on, 10 years or whatever time they put that depending on the value, if somebody's living around that, the value of their land could go up because of the development. So that could be kind of a double-edged sword. Beau says, true, until the market starts to tell us what's going up. Commissioner Allenbrand said, right. Beau said, it's hard to speculate on whether it's going to go up or down. Commissioner Allenbrand said, yeah. And Beau said, but I said, like my experience has been, it usually drops the first year or two, and after that, it's as if the project has never happened. Then Commissioner O'Hara asked about Beau, and she asked, I'll take, since I don't have that much time, about the 900-acre and 1,300-acre solar farms put in, that there were any residents around that facility. Or was it pretty much just vacant ground? And he said the one in Gilliband was vacant when they started, but now there's actually 2 subdivisions that have been built within less than a quarter mile of the facility. And Commissioner O'Hara said, yes, a quarter mile, and Beau agreed, yes. So you can tell that the developers had no hesitancy in building 2 subdivisions within sight, 1/4 mile of a solar farm with no screening around the solar farm. So if somebody has a negative view of activity near their property, it's only their view, and it's not necessarily born out of actuality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next
Now we
speaker.
have Jennifer Whitlow. Jennifer Whitlow.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Whitlow. I live at 31700 West 217th Street. Thank you so much for letting me address you today. 2 years ago, my kids and I were on our way home from church youth group on a Wednesday night, traveling south on Gardner Road, headed home, when we came upon a fatality accident. A semi-truck driver had stopped, not with a stop sign, right on Gardner Road, gotten out of his vehicle to ask the car behind him if this was where the Hostess plant was, and unfortunately, he was struck by an oncoming vehicle going northbound. Over the last few years, traveling on these rural roads, I have seen so many unsafe things happen. I've seen them blow through four-way stop at 199th and Gardner Road. I've seen them make U-turns multiple times. I've seen them come right into my lane as I come just to make a right-hand turn on a gravel road at 207th to get to warehouses. Twice we have lost power on our little street there as they've taken out power poles trying to turn right onto a gravel road that barely 2 cars can fit on. I've seen them high center across 215th, across Gardner Road, blocking traffic to work and school. This has to be stopped. I should not be afraid to travel into town. I should not be afraid to send my 2 teenagers on off to school in Gardner. There's a generously provided exit at Homestead. I-35 is designed for traffic, 68 highway. It's not the citizens of Johnson County nor your responsibility to provide a shortcut to get to a warehouse or a way to skirt the weigh scales. I'm asking you to put no semi-truck traffic signs on 199th, 207th, 215th, Gardner Road, Moonlight, and Cedar Niles. We just can't afford financially on the roads for them to be destroyed or for another fatality accident to take place. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Now we have Jennifer Williams. Jennifer Williams.
Good morning, my name is Jennifer Williams, and I live at 21993 Moonlight Road. And in this week's packet, I brought you some maps to get a better idea of this area. Again, we are asking for the same restrictions that Jennifer just mentioned on the truck traffic. What we're looking at on that first map, it'll show you Gardner, Spring Hill, Edgerton, the buffer Edgerton put in so that they could be a not in my backyard NIMBY and not have the intermodal in their backyard, but then they wanted to infiltrate it over into the zip codes that are actually Gardner and Spring Hill. Again, that narrow corridor we discussed last week is how you gave them access to that, to bring them into our community. I find it interesting that your brochure downstairs about building green says, avoid building in environmentally sensitive locations. This is the Hillsdale watershed. Your 2013 area plan said no intermodal south or east of I-35, yet Edgerton and their partner North Point worked together to silently buy up over 17 properties and have them annexed overnight into 2017 so that they could use the 12-520A Kansas statute to have contiguous land and zone it or annex it into their city and then rezone it according to their plans. Again, their comprehensive plan, as I showed you last week, also doesn't allow this, but they push forward anyway because they have that power. If you look on the third page there at the hostess facility, pavement ends, gravel begins, and 207th on eastward toward Gardner Road. The trucks use this daily. You can see how it's tearing up the road. They're going to continue to do that because they've leapfrogged over a mile to the east side of Gardner Road, and they're proposing over 11 million square feet more. Even though we have 3 active lawsuits, they're not waiting for the judge to decide. They're pushing it through anyway and already approved 2 million square feet of site plans last month. And so if you continue to allow this, the residents are going to have to pay more taxes to keep up the upkeep and maintenance on these roads. It's going to continue on toward Moonlight, toward 169. Again, we want restrictions on 199th, 207th, 215th, Gardner Road, Moonlight Road, and Cedar Niles to keep the taxes down and the citizens safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Stan Kanoki. Stan Kanoki.
Hello, I'm Stan Kanoki, 8708 West 82nd Street, Overland Park, Kansas. My family has leased their land to NextEra for the proposed solar farm, West Gardner Solar. I will be so proud to be able to say I had a part in making this solar farm happen. Clean, renewable energy. The city of Gardner and Edgerton, Kansas has shown growth towards Highway I-35. When it comes to shopping for necessities, Gardner is that town. Most of the shops on the east side of Gardner. Edgerton has very few. The growth of Edgerton is mainly the intermodal and North Point warehouses. In my 61 years, Edgerton city limits hasn't crossed north of 56 Highway. This could be because of the flood zone that runs along north of 56 Highway, as shown on the futuristic map, the webpage Edgerton Zoning. It's a comprehensive plan for Edgerton future to the year 2040. Edgerton city's population has decreased from 1,784 in the year 2020 to 1,736 year 2022. This data is from the census. Gardner and Edgerton has another obstacle. Urban growth is all the oil well pump jacks west of Gardner and north of Edgerton. These pumps start just west of Gardner Municipal Airport to Edgerton Road. They start just north of 56 Highway all the way north past 167th Street. With all these oil pump jacks, which are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, comes the oil tank holders. Need I say more? Don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with landowners making money on oil. I'm all in when it comes to energy independence. Could do less with train cars full of coal. All I ask for is fair and reasonable regulations. The Planning Commission regulations were some of the most restrictive in the nation. I asked for 1 mile distance from boundary from city to solar farm, and no other project has this regulation. I asked for a 25-year CU conditional use permit plus a waiver for additional 5 years.
Excuse me, your time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have Ben Hobart. Ben Hobart.
Ben Hobart, Westwood Hills. Please recall that the Pfizer-BioNTech emergency use authorization was extended to include adolescents aged 12 to 17 on May 12, 2021. It was further extended to children aged 5 or older on November 3, 2021. Booster doses were authorized for those aged 12 to 17 on January 6, 2022. In that limited period of time, the OpenVAERS site reports the following for the 5 to 17 age group: 48,251 adverse events, 112 deaths, 443 permanently disabled, 1,308 cases of myocarditis, 3,826 life-threatening events, 4,727 hospitalized, and 8,657 emergency room visits. Please also note that those are only the events actually reported to VAERS. By various estimates, underreporting to VAERS may be by a multiple of 20 to 100 times. The most compelling study was one in Boston, which evidenced an underreporting of a 41 multiple. Parents, between the dates of February 23 and May 24, as reported on the Johnson County, Kansas COVID dashboard, the percent vaccinated in this age group increased by only 2.7 percentage points, from 36.2% to 38.9%. Further, booster dose administration increased by only 1.3 percentage points, from 6.4% to 7.7%. You are not alone if you have reached a reasoned, rational decision that your healthy child or children do not need to get a clot shot. There are many doctors who are stating that it is not necessary for healthy children to get the clot shots. Dr. Peter McCulloch, a Dallas, Texas-based cardiologist and epidemiologist with 51 peer-reviewed articles on COVID, stated, "I'm telling you, it is a bad proposition for anyone in the younger age groups to get vaccines." Dr. McCulloch also referenced a source summarizing 106 research studies that affirm recovery from the virus bestows naturally acquired immunity. Parents and adults, seriously consider whether you will derive a net benefit from the clot shots. Thank you.
Chairman, that completes our public comments for today.
The public comment portion of our agenda is completed. I have one note for the record this morning. I would just simply note for the record that pursuant to resolution number 121-06, the facilities director appointed Valerie Castor to serve as a facilities designee or representative to the Public Arts Commission through December 31, 2024. We will now turn to the agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read that item?
Item number 1, consider approving the May 5th, 2022 business session minutes.
Are there any additions or corrections? Do I hear a motion to approve? Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Commissioner Faust, second.
Allenbrand made the motion. Fast seconded the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. We will now turn to the action agenda, but I want to make this one note. We have 2 items on the action agenda. There may be individuals who are interested in commenting on those items. The process that we follow on each item, the staff will make a report. If there's any applicant who wishes to make a comment, and then we will open it up to public comment. Following public comment, the item will come back before the commission for a decision. So that's the process we will follow this morning as we have in the past. So the clerk will please read the first item or second item on the agenda.
Item number 2, resolution number 033-22. Consider adopting resolution number 033-22, authorizing the acquisition by condemnation of the right-of-ways and easements necessary for the 199th Street Shoulder Safety and Structural Improvement Project between Clear Road and US 169 Highway.
Mr. Pedig.
Good morning, Brian Pedig with Public Works. This item does seek condemnation for the safety improvements of 199th Street, and that's from Clare Road to US 169. It's a joint project with the city of Spring Hill. We will add shoulders, a clear zone. We will improve drainage as well as add structure to the existing pavement. I would note that the county designated 199th Street over 20 years ago through the CARNA process as a Type 3, which is the highest designation of an arterial. The thought being that the county saw future growth and that we needed to let folks know where we see some of these major improvements are going to be needed. While this improvement is not a capacity improvement, it is a safety improvement, I do anticipate that more development is coming, which is why we have prioritized this project, and we would be doing it at some point anyway. Last week I reported we had 7 property owners. We have successfully negotiated with 2, and we have another property owner where there's an agreement in principle. We expect to sign that agreement, and we should end up with 4 property owners. As we go forward, we will always work with folks to try to find a fair compensation for the right-of-way that's needed for these safety projects. But at this time, we do need to go forward with our condemnation to maintain our schedule. So I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Pedig, it's my understanding that this project does not add lanes to 199th Street, but shoulders which provide public safety as well as drainage, et cetera. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
There is a turn lane I believe Spring Hill is installing for their park.
Okay.
But
all
not
right.
lanes, additional through lanes.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. Obviously, I do not oppose these safety improvements. However, in conjunction, we need to amend this with stating that no interstate truck traffic will be allowed on 199th Street, and we need to post 199th Street with the no truck traffic signs, and we need to enforce this because these interstate big truckers are pounding our roads to death, and they are causing extreme hazards on unimproved roads. And we need to let people know, we need to let the intermodal know that they have access to I-35, and they can then go down I-35 to access 169 and 69 highway, and they are not welcome to be cutting across on our secondary roads. This is a huge problem, and CARNAP states that we do not want our secondary roads to be used for interstate truck traffic, but we are not enforcing this. So I will be making an amendment to this if it is appropriate, that we put signage on 199th Street, and it's not just 199th Street. We need to have a committee of the whole and really look at this. The truck traffic should not be allowed on any of our secondary roads that are in the county. We need to insist that they use the interchange at Homestead and 207th. This is unbelievable. We didn't approve this. I mean, these are repercussions from the city of Edgerton, and we just need to make sure that we are complying with our rules and regulations.
Well, the item before us pertains only to the safety improvements on 199th from Clare Road to 169 Highway, and it is a joint project under agreement with the city of Spring Hill. So those items can be considered separately, but should not be part of this consideration. Mr. Pedig, would you remind us of the CARNEP issues involving cut-through traffic?
Certainly, and I would note that Commissioner Allenbrand is working with the cities of Gardner and Edgerton discussing traffic development, and we have all said we will review this together and come forward with a consensus on where we think trucks should be, shouldn't be, and some types of mitigation efforts if needed. So that is being considered separately, you're correct. CARNEP was concerned that when they approved these designations, that we might have interstate traffic cutting through the county, meaning going from I-35, cutting across, trying to get to US 71 in Missouri. And it was concerned about that and said, if that happens, we're going to try to discourage that. And that is correct. So the thought that if there's trucks originating or having a destination in the county was a different idea. And that falls more into the conversations that Commissioner Allenbrand is having, is where should trucks be on our systems?
Okay, Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pedig, for the report. I took the opportunity last weekend to drive down 199th Street to remind myself of the conditions there, and there's no doubt that we need safety improvements there. And I was driving on a clear, bright, sunny day. I can't imagine trying to drive down that road in the dark when it's raining or snowing. There's no doubt that these improvements are needed to keep people safe. And I appreciate the concerns about the truck traffic. I think that is something we need to think about. But I would like to give Commissioner Allenbrand the opportunity to continue her work and come back with a more comprehensive proposal because, for example, and you're the traffic expert, not me, but I assume you can't just say no trucks. You have to have weight limits, you have to have specific information, and then who enforces that and how do you measure that? That's a lot of information that I don't think we are prepared to address this morning, but definitely the safety improvements are absolutely necessary. So
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I see that there are two issues here. One is the condemnation and the other is the safety and truck usage of our roadways. My comments will be directed at the moment to the condemnation, although I would support the validity of the argument that looking at truck usage on these roads, both in terms of safety and, quite honestly, the destruction that these massive 18-wheelers do on roadways is a significant cost factor long-term for these roads, and I think there's a validity to that, both in terms of what the neighbors feel and the safety for motorists and the cost to the county. So we need to consider that and pursue that. But on the issues of the condemnations, Mr. Pedig, last week I had indicated that I had hoped to see some topographical maps on the enlargement of the areas that would be used by the county and how it might infringe upon those property owners. I have not had those maps presented. Is that something that you have in your portfolio this afternoon or this morning?
No, I don't. I guess I'm sorry I missed that request, but I can describe briefly that generally what we're requiring is 20 to 25 feet of additional right-of-way on each side. The existing right-of-way is generally 40 feet, and that was dedicated by the settlers when they first built the dirt roads there for their wagons and bringing their crops to market. This type of improvement requires an additional 40 feet, 20 feet on each side.
Well, and you said that last week, and I respect that. The question, though, was this enlargement, does it infringe upon any structures that the property owners have? Does it disrupt their driveways or any of the vestiges of their property that are of value that will be significantly impacted.
We do not need to acquire any structures. So I'm glad about that. That does make things a lot more difficult. Certainly driveways will need to be readjusted to meet with the current road.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got 3 different comments to make. One, could you explain what you have been doing with the staff from all the surrounding cities and the meetings that you've been having?
So currently, what we're in the process of is taking traffic counts, trying to analyze how much traffic we have, and then more importantly, where do we have truck traffic? And then we hope with that information to be able to have a discussion with Edgerton, Gardner, and ourselves as to where do we think truck traffic's appropriate, what needs to be done, where do we have trucks where we don't want them, what can we do about that? So that is an ongoing process.
And the other thing I want to say is that this is for safety reasons. Those shoulders, there's also farm equipment that's going up and down this road. It's very much unsafe. And you've also been trying to work with Google Map. You know, back 11 years ago when the intermodal went in, 199th Street was designated as one of the fairways. So when those truckers actually put that into their Google Map, that's what comes up the route. And it's terrible travesty what happened to that gentleman. But if they're not getting the right directions, I don't think any one of them want to stop on a road like that. So I just wanted everyone here to know, and Mrs. O'Hara, you're welcome to join any of these meetings to give some constructive insight to these as well. So we are getting ready to have several residents to a meeting to discuss what some of our findings are.
Okay. Ms. O'Hara.
Mr. Pedig, we are within our home rule to post on 199th Street if it's not within 1 mile of the interstate. We have, or a U.S. highway, we have the right to post no trucks. And obviously, we all know that agricultural trucks would be exempt from that. But interstate truck traffic, we have a right to say no. And we have no trucks posted in several communities, and it is not a difficult process. Is that true?
So there is guidance, both federal and state, of what the local entities can do. So you're correct, yes. But we need to be careful when we ban trucks in one area, we don't create a problem in another. So that's part of this process of looking at this area in totality.
But we need to just have a very clear statement that they are not welcome on our secondary roads. I mean, that 25 years ago, 199th Street was designated as an arterial street, never, ever imagining that interstate truck traffic would be using it. And we are within our rights of home rule to specifically say no. And that it is just simple. We just need to say no. We can say no now. We can do this comprehensive study. And if we decide that there is some route that I can't even imagine would be appropriate for our secondary roads to be used, because we are going to be looking at horrendous cost on upkeep, not mentioning safety. I mean, 199th Street is not appropriate for truck traffic. 207th is mostly gravel. It is not appropriate for truck traffic. 191st, it is not. These roads were never built to accommodate interstate truck traffic. And for us as a board to sit here and allow this and putting people in jeopardy and costing our taxpayers significant cost because of the destruction of our roads, it's just unconscionable. But we are within our rights to post no trucks. And this will not interfere with local farmers, because that would be originating within that area. On the fact that our truck traffic is originating in Edgerton, their final destination is interstate. We need to make sure that we are very clear on this, that they cannot use our roads like that, and it's for their safety too. It's not just our safety, it's for the safety of the truckers.
Thank you.
When-
I think they're, go ahead, Brian.
When Commissioner Allenbrand started this process of discussions, we said, let's not make any decisions unilaterally. Let's make a consensus, because the decisions we make can affect others in a negative way. So we want to make sure we have support amongst everyone as we go forward, which is a daunting task considering the history of Edgerton and Gardner.
Well, again, the question before us is in regards to the condemnation, as previously mentioned. As has been mentioned, discussions are ongoing in regards to truck traffic. I think Ms. Hanslick stated it well, that once you put a prohibition in effect, who's going to enforce that? Will that be up to the sheriff's office? Will we need to put in facilities to check weights? So there are a lot of questions that need to be looked at rather than a knee-jerk reaction to move forward. So, Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. So I think the question that Commissioner Ashcraft was trying to get to is, with these improvements on 199th Street to the landowners that we are doing and it's necessary for the condemnation, is there going to be problems with the egress from their driveways onto the roadway? And if so, how is that going to be addressed, and will that be funded by the county? I think that was, and if it wasn't his intent, I would like to know that. As far as grade differentiations.
There certainly will be some differentiation in the driveways as they seek a new point with the shoulder. Might require a few relocations, but access will be provided.
But, so the cost of those relocations,
That's part of the project.
and so that will be funded by the county?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the discussion. I had a follow-up question related to the condemnation. Mr. Pedic, of the four that are remaining, are those primarily or exclusively related to price negotiations, or are there other objections remaining from the landowners?
Each is unique, and I would suggest if we want to talk about compensation, we should do that in executive session. I believe one of the landowners is here today, but some of them are its price, what they believe their property's worth, or impacts to trees, or things like that. I believe the owner that's here today is just not comfortable with the project in general and how it will impact.
Thank
But
you.
I'll let that property owner speak.
That's usually the case. Price and impact. Ms. Allenbrand.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, you have a very detailed briefing here. You provided us all with a map, and I want to invite anybody. I appreciate Commissioner Hanslick driving out there. It is dangerous. I have left a property and felt like I was taking my life in my own hands when I pulled out of the driveway. I mean, you just have to take a guess between the trees and just trying to see if there's a car coming. So I think that this is what's on the docket today, and I'm hoping that we can just move along to hear some of the residents.
All right. Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make it clear, I have not heard anyone on this dais say they don't care about the truck traffic. There's obviously movement happening to address these issues. We are very concerned about it, but we want to do it in a way that is strategic and avoids any unintended consequences. So I just want that to be clear, that nobody is unconcerned about truck traffic, but we want to do it right and do it right the first time. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Pedig?
No.
Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. So is the objection how close the road is now going to be to their house? Are there any concerns on that?
So as Chair Eilert stated earlier, we're not adding lanes, it's the existing pavement. We're not moving the road is staying in the exact same spot. We're just adding safety improvements.
Right, but I'm just saying, is there, that, is the concern that the road, that the right-of-way is too close to their homes? I'm just asking, I have no idea.
I'm sure in some cases that folks don't like the thought that the right-of-way will be further to what was at one time their
So
property.
and you said it was 26 feet on each side, is that correct?
Generally 20 to 25 additional feet on each side.
Okay.
There are some construction easements and caveats.
And again, we will be footing the bill for any realignment of the driveways as far as grades.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
That's standard.
Yeah, that's consistent with every project we've done, so.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no other comments, we'll turn to the public comment. If there's anyone present who wishes to speak to the condemnation item, welcome you to the podium. Restrict your comments to 2 minutes, and we'll be glad to receive that information. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Keanu Tolson, 21200 West 199th Street. If you look at the map that just...
Can you speak up, please?
My name is Keanu Tolson, 21200 West 199th Street. I believe my property is on that map if it just shifted, but I am not as prepared as everyone else. But long story short is I have my property, which I procured in August. I found out about this the week of my closing. That being said, first of all, I would like to request official IFC drawings for this, as the preliminary drawings I've been provided were dated October 27th of 2000. Next, I would like to request official P6 construction scheduling of all activities. That being said, on the IFC drawings, I would like a PDF or 2-scale plotted drawing so I can take my own measurements. The current culverts going east and west have been unmaintained on the current existing right-of-way and easement, as well as the culvert that goes under 199th north and south, which has not been maintained and is allowing additional pollutants from the golf course that is directly south to me to going to the creek that surrounds my house, as well as erode my yard. So they just brought up the fact that it was 20 feet. So the right-of-way right now, or the current easement as of now, is 20 foot from center line. On my property, they want to go to an additional 45 feet on one portion and 50 feet on the next portion. That being said, they are going over the 20 feet that he just said that was going to be allotted. So it seems that they're gonna go 25 feet on one section, and then when they get to the culvert, it's gonna be an additional 5 feet, making that 30 feet. My house is currently 77 feet from the road, 70 feet from the current easement. The new proposed easement will make my house from the foundation 45 feet.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Pedig, I don't see any problem in submitting final design work to those involved in this project as landowners. Is that correct?
Correct. We'll provide documentation.
Okay.
as we
All right.
can.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is there someone else? All right. If there's no, yes.
Mike Jensen, 15665 Moonlight Road. And it's very interesting to me that the county staff didn't realize the impact it was going to have on a landowner. And it pains me to say this, but I see this as typical. And it also pains me to see that we've reduced public comments to 2 minutes. I know it was done for COVID. I think COVID's kind of passed now for all purposes. And could we, I'm going to request that we put public comments back to 5 minutes in the entrance of the transparency that we're told that this commission wants to operate under. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Staff does work with property owners on any of the projects involved. Mr. Pedig, can you comment on that?
Yeah, as I did mention earlier, 20 to 25 feet is generally what we need. So that would be, when you add that to the existing 20, that's the 45 feet he's referencing. And as discussed, there are sometimes easements for these drainage structures that will need to get out there and improve the drainage. So he's correct in everything he's saying.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this item? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jennifer Williams at 21993 Moonlight Road. So obviously I've been here for 5 weeks in a row now talking about safety and the truck traffic, and so safety is important on this road. However, the condemnation is the part that concerns me. He already said this is where we're at now. We're not adding, but eventually, because we're anticipating more, because everyone thinks it's a foregone conclusion that this is just going to be all warehouses out here, not giving any credit to the fact that we do have lawsuits that are trying to stop it. The residents are pushing back. If you look again at the front page of my map, this is little bitty Edgerton over here. This is Gardner. This area that we're talking about where we all live is bigger than all of that, yet we've never been invited to any of these meetings. Now, I understand that Shirley said we're going to be here in the future, but plans have already been made, so what good is an invitation after everybody's got an agenda? And so Gardner, they've canceled their little section there because they have from Clare Road to Gardner Road that they don't want this to be a truck route because this is our residential area. We have a lot of large lots that are going to grow into more homes and more subdivisions, and so we don't want this truck traffic here. Wider shoulders, great. Condemnation, not so great. You start going down Gardner Road with these 2 million square feet that I mentioned earlier that where they've leapfrogged over Gardner Road, they said that that's going to be under the condition that they can partner with you guys and get that condemnations and eminent domain so that they can add a turn lane. One turn lane there is not going to help for everywhere else that we have these problems. And so, yeah, Gardner and Edgerton may have had a problem in the past and along that boundary line, but it's really because Edgerton is a bully and they want everybody to pay for everything for them. They want to push their rights on people and take away our rights in the process. And so we need you to stand strong on this. And there's nothing that is preventing you from putting those, yes, we're going to pay for this, but keep your trucks off our roads because we don't want to keep paying for it. This is for having safer roads for our citizens, not to give you guys a place where you can just keep driving. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, there being no one else to be heard on this item, it's back before the commission. A motion would be in order. Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adopt resolution number 033-22 to authorize condemnation of the rights-of-way and easements necessary for the 199th Street Shoulder Safety and Structural Improvement Project between Clare Road and US 169 Highway.
Motion has been made to approve the request in regards to the condemnation. Do I hear a second?
Myers, second.
Myers seconded the motion. Hanslick made the motion. Comments on the motion? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pedic, the additional approximately 25 feet that's going to be required on both sides, this has been implied, but I wanted to see if I understand specifically. Part of the reason, or the primary reason for that, is to improve safety. So there may be some minor widening of the pavement, but not significantly, but there will be building or rebuilding of shoulders and culverts so that it will be safer if traffic has to pull over or forced out of their lane. Is that my understanding of the improvements you're talking about?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. So I just want clarification. The gentleman that just spoke, is the easement going to be an additional 45 feet on his? And is this going to put the road so close to his house that it's going to impact the value of his house? Is that the issue?
I think there are several issues, and to have that discussion, I will need to invite other folks up here that are more in tune with the specific issues.
But is on his property, is the additional, is it going to be 45 feet additional? Or is
No.
it going to just be the 25 feet
I think it's
additional?
been stated 25 feet
Well,
several
it's been,
times.
I realize that it's been stated, but this gentleman indicated that it was going to be 45 feet on his particular property, and I just want clarification to make sure that that's not that's
So
not the case.
there's an existing 20 feet on each side right
Right.
now. So when you add 20 or 25 feet to that, that's how you get to 45. So he's spot on correct.
Well, but in his presentation, it appeared that he was saying that it was an additional 45. I just wanted to make sure that it was a total and not an additional.
And so I'm going to look at Ryan. Is that correct? So he's the project manager. It's an additional 25 feet. So
Okay.
it is not an additional 45.
Okay, all right. I just wanted clarification.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right,
Okay, so
thank you very much.
is,
Any other comments? Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just sent you a text if we could meet with that gentleman.
Yes.
Sometime
Okay,
this week.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
okay,
Ms. O'Hara?
thank you. I'm still confused. So is there a portion of his land that it's going to be an additional 35 feet instead of an additional 25 feet?
Ryan, can you speak to that?
Good morning, Ryan Sims with Public Works. So we measure things from the center line, section line of the road. So it's either going to be 45 foot or 50 foot from the center line of the road. We had to take a little additional portion for the drainage easement on his property to do some additional ditch work by his culvert.
Okay, so at the drainage culvert, it will be 30 feet.
Correct. Correct.
Additional. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, the motion is before us. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast. Aye. Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
With reservations, yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. If I heard correctly, there are 7 votes in favor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Motion carried. Thank you all. Next item.
Item number 3, consider authorizing a $1 million investment in Hedge Lane Apartments, a 144-unit low-income housing tax credit, LIHTC, affordable housing development to be constructed in Shawnee, Kansas.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, the Planning, Housing, and Community Development Director. I have several people here with me this morning. Jessica Holteling, our Deputy Director of Housing, is here as well. And then in a moment, I'm going to introduce the development team of Kelly Harabi and Jason Swartz are here as well that can talk in more detail about this particular project. But just as a summary on the briefing sheet this morning, and also I apologize, David Ward is here, our Housing Director as well, so for the very technical questions. Just a summary in this briefing sheet, we're asking for approval of a $1 million loan for a workforce housing project in Shawnee, Kansas, located at K7 and 75th Street. You're looking at a parcel map there that shows kind of the vicinity of the area, and so you get an idea of the topography of where the project is located. Just a couple things about this. This idea for this project originated out of our discussions with the Housing Subcommittee group. We talked several times about ways we can develop and maintain affordable housing for a long period of time. We have historically in Johnson County, we have used housing choice vouchers, or Section 8 certificates are the typical term for that, which is tenant-based. In other words, that tenant can use that voucher and go anywhere where they would like, a project that accepts these type of developments. We have, so we're kind of looking at new ways to think about housing and what we could do in terms of providing gap financing. So there was quite a bit of discussion with that group as we began to talk through concepts. And in one of our priorities that was presented before the board, this development of more affordable housing units was listed as one of our goals as we move forward. I do want to also emphasize a couple things about this project. It was the zoning was in place. It was approved originally in 1999 as part of a planned unit development type zoning that included some duplex units as well as multifamily. This is for a 144 unit property. The duplexes were built but the other multifamily piece never materialized. So the developer came forward in 2021. This item was presented before the Planning Commission in June of 2021. It was a revision to a site plan because it's generally consistent with the original plan, and the developer can talk in more detail about that. So it's placed as a consent item on the Planning Commission agenda. And then also in 2021, there was a request for industrial revenue bonds for a sales tax exemption for construction materials on this project as well. I believe that was done on November 22nd of 2021. So that kind of provides kind of a brief overview for the project. I wanted also to point out a couple of things. This investment is about a $30 investment leveraging for the project. It really represents an investment of $6,944 per unit. So it's when it's spread over 144 units, that just under $7,000 per unit investment is spectacular. The zoning is in place. As I said, the approved plans are in place, the permits are in place. It's shovel ready. The developers asked for this loan in order to help them with some hurdles in terms of construction costs. There's been, as you all know, there's been increase in construction costs. Also, labor costs are part of that. This is a loan. It's a $1 million loan with a payment of $10,000 per year for 14 years. And then in year 15, there's an $850,000 balloon. And that was done intentionally in that it's a fully secured loan. So there's a lien attached to it that is permanent, that has to be either paid off. It's non-amortizing, so that lien is in place. And the developer has also pledged personal guarantees for that, as well as personal guarantees for the tax credits. So with that, I'm going to ask just a brief overview on the units. It's a combination of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. As an idea, to give you an idea of the income restriction, it's a 60% of area median income project. For example, one person, they cannot have an income that exceeds $40,680 annually. For a family of 4, that would be $58,080. And then a typical 1-bedroom unit would rent for between $980 and $1,200 a month. And I just wanted to point out a couple things to you on the site plan, which is what you have before you right now, with a brief elevation that shows what the project will look like. I also have, Linda, can you scroll down to the additional elevation?
The other.
Okay, thank you. There's a more detailed picture of the site plan. Great, thank you. Oh, I just saw it. There we go. And that is an elevation of what the project will look like. With that, I was going to ask briefly.
Mr. Leipzig, before you leave the podium, based upon some of the contacts that I've had with the interested property owners and constituents, the county has no jurisdiction in the zoning of this property. The city of Shawnee did the zoning, the site plan, and so as far as the location or the approval, the county has no jurisdiction or activity in that regard. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct, sir.
And it's my understanding that the city of Shawnee has also issued industrial revenue bonds
Yes, that
to
is
help
correct.
finance this project. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And do we have an idea of what that amount is?
The total amount was about $30 million of November of 2021, but it amounts to, since it's a sales tax exemption for the construction materials, it amounts to about $1.5 million to $2 million.
Okay.
What that incentive was.
I should also make this note in regards to an earlier comment about small businesses. Last year, I believe it was, is that right, Mr. Thompson? Because of the availability of federal funds in regards to the pandemic, $10,000 grants, not loans, were made to small businesses across the county.
Chairman,
Yes.
And if I may, that number, for your information, was 1,342 of those $10,000 grants were made, totaling $13,420,000.
So the funds that have come from the federal government have been used for the specific purpose that was outlined. And so over 1,000 small businesses last year did receive $10,000 grants, not to be paid back. And in this particular case, again, there is additional federal funds that we've identified for community investment. This is not a grant. This is a loan, not a grant. So, Ms. O'Hara, did you have a question at this time?
Yes, that was one of my questions, was how much was the sales tax exemption, the value of that? Is this the first time that we have ever entered into a program like this?
I believe this is the first time the county has done something like this. This is like I said, historically, the county has been involved strictly in the Housing Choice Voucher Program or Section 8. It's the first time we have done this. However, this model or this type of investment is done all over the country in various places through a variety of sources. That was one of some of the research items we did with the Housing Trust, or with the Housing Subcommittee, and looking at a Housing Trust Fund and some other things that might be available.
Okay, and I also want to note that $10,000 during the COVID crisis, which the government created, there's many, many small businesses that wondered if they were going to survive or not. And a $10,000 grant is far different than a $1 million interest-free loan that is paid back just at $10,000 a month, which is less than $1,000 a month to have the use of public money. That is a horse of a different color. And we are setting a precedence here. And we need to understand that not only is there the $2 million on the sales tax exemption, and that the city of Shawnee had no idea that this developer was coming to the county to ask for an additional $1 million, but they have $12 million of tax credits that, if I understand correctly, is purchased at 86 cents per dollar. So they had to sell nearly $14 million of these tax credits in order for them to net $12 million. That $13.9 million is revenue that will never, ever go to the federal government. And this $12 million that's coming to them is tax-free. And this is a Christmas tree that just never stops giving. And we have to understand that this is a for-profit project. I am all for profits. That's my background. I come from the construction industry, but we are setting a precedent. And the market works. They already have a bag full of goodies, and now they're coming and asking for another $1 million. And I am, the sweet aroma of money is all that I can smell. It's just, this is unconscionable. And the city council members had no idea, according to my conversations with Eric Jenkins, who is the president of the Shawnee City Council, had no idea that this was going to be the affordable, or not affordable, but the housing vouchers, which used to be called Section 8. And this is going to be a unit, this is going to be an apartment complex that is going to be 100%. It's not a portion of it, it is 100% of that will require vouchers. So this just has come on the scene way too quickly. It's a way too big ask, and those are my comments.
All right, well, Mr. Leipzig, I apologize for interrupting your presentation with my comments. So if you would continue the presentation, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I was going to introduce Kelly Robbie and Jason Swords. If you guys want to provide a brief overview of the project, you can talk. These guys could talk about some of the specifics in terms of the financing and some of the details. But I thought it would be beneficial to have you actually hear from them personally. on this item. So with that, I'll let you guys speak. Oh, or Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Jessica, Hoteling Housing Services. I did want to mention very quickly, Commissioner O'Hara, about the housing choice voucher comment that you made. The 144 units in this particular development will not all be accepting housing vouchers. The developer will accept housing vouchers if we have clients who would choose to live there, but they are not, all 144 units will not be filled with housing choice vouchers, and I wanted to make that clarification before Jason and Kelly come up to speak to you.
May I make a comment, please?
No, let's continue the presentation. There'll be opportunities.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Jason Swords. I'm the principal of Sunflower Development Group. We're located in Kansas City, Missouri, and we are a local real estate developer. We build market rate housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, hotels, and car washes. So there's some weird stuff that we throw in there every once in a while. I'm going to talk just mainly about the project itself. So this is 144 Class A workforce housing units. I served on the Johnson County Housing Study Committee in 2020 and 2021. And I believe that study proved that there's a need for over 5,000 units of this type in Johnson County. We did not rezone this property. It has been zoned as multifamily since 1999. So there's no confusion. We didn't have to go in and kick up an uproar. I presented the request to the Shawnee City Council for the IRBs as workforce housing in 2021. That tone has never changed. This has always been a workforce housing deal. It's a 60% AMI project where we have been allocated credits from KHRC. Those credits are allocated to us so that we can reduce the rents down to where a family that makes $48,000 to $60,000 a year can afford to live in a Class A property. I've heard rumors this past week that we have discounted the materials, the amenities, so on and so forth throughout this project. And I am here to represent that we have not discounted the amenities. We are building a swimming pool. These are Class A units. We have in-unit washer dryers. We are building a FEMA shelter. We have a dog park. Like, this is something I care about. And I live in Kansas City. I wouldn't do this. My brother lives in Shawnee. I wouldn't embarrass my brother. I believe that there's been a lot of misinformation regarding this project over the last week or so, and I'm sorry that it's taken up so much of your time, but this project is shovel-ready. We have permits issued from the city of Shawnee. We would like to close next week. The dollars that we're asking for from Johnson County, so if it's $1 million loan, I'm willing to personally guarantee that loan. My company's willing to personally guarantee it. And just so everybody knows, in other communities and counties that we have worked in, this is not an altogether different situation as mezzanine financing for affordable housing. This is very common. I've done it with Jackson County and Kansas City, Missouri multiple times. Currently, this property pays $2,906 annually in property taxes. We're estimating that the property taxes will be $199,000 on an annual basis once we're done. So Johnson County supports this project with their housing study, proving that there's a need for this type of housing. You give a loan that gets paid back. Yes, it's very low interest, and believe me, I appreciate that. It gets paid back $850,000. But you're going to make $3 million in additional property taxes and fill a need that the community has. I don't know if anybody wants to read the 319-page Johnson County housing study, but there's a lot of work that's gone into this, and it costs a ton of money. I've got to thank Jay, David, and Jessica for the effort that they have put into this project and understanding us. They've been so responsive, and I apologize. I know there's been a lot of back channels and whatnot to members of this commission and so on and so forth. And I also have spoken to a number of Shawnee City Council members this past week. I am telling you that there has been 0.0 bait and switch. This has been a workforce housing project since day one. We chose to not go back to Shawnee for a property tax abatement or any kind of a TIF because we knew it wouldn't be supported. And our biggest goal with this project is that we want it to be a Class A great deal that we will not skimp on, and I think that your housing study proves that there's a need for it. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and so
Okay,
apologize.
let me ask one
Apologize
question.
if I was kind of animating. That trucking thing got me all fired up, so I apologize.
Thank you. Let me ask one question. There are housing tax credits involved in this. Would you explain the origination, where those come from, and how they're to be used?
Sure. So the housing tax credits come from the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation, KHRC, out of Topeka. They're allocated these tax credits from the federal government to support affordable housing. We made an application. We were awarded those tax credits. We then take those tax credits upon completion and stabilization, and there's a whole lot of work that's got to get done. There's $31 million worth of work that has to get done that is personally guaranteed by me, our contractor, my partner here, Kelly, a lot of work that has to get done. We monetize those tax credits. So yes, they do get sold for pennies on the dollar. I think it's 83 or 86 cents on this project. They get sold to a company called WNC. They're the second largest national affordable housing tax credit syndicator in the country. And by monetizing those tax credits, that's what allows us to charge under $1,000 a month in rent. Because if I were going to go build this project today and be at, $300,000 a door all in it, I'd have to charge $1,500, $1,600 a month in order to make my mortgage payment. Those tax credits are allocated by the federal government to support very low income, moderate income, workforce, and family housing. And our company, we've done a handful of affordable projects. We are the consultant for a very fantastic nonprofit that's building affordable housing, and it's kind of a rabbit hole when you try to understand that these credits get monetized, but it's an industry. And the folks that buy these credits are banks, insurance companies, so on and so forth. But no, those credits definitely come down and they pay down the debt, which allows us to do the project.
Do I understand that a federal agency will continue to be involved in making assessments about, because of the tax credits, the level of rent that is charged?
Yeah, so we'll go through an annual audit. We'll work with KHRC on an annual basis and WNC, our syndicator. We're in this project as owners for 15 years. We're not going anywhere. We're going to manage it. We're going to own it. We'll be out there all the time. We are audited by our, not only our investors, our lender, but also the state of Kansas. And frankly, if Johnson County wanted to audit us in any way, shape, or form, we would be absolutely open to that.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. O'Hara? Excuse me, Jay, are you finished?
One addition on that too. If the housing choice vouchers are accepted in this development project, Housing Services will also conduct inspections for housing quality standards as well.
Okay, thank you.
One thing about the vouchers, those that have vouchers still have to meet the credit requirements, the background checks, the criminal checks, all of these items, right? So just because you have a voucher doesn't mean you get an apartment. We're still very strict on what we do and the type of people that we want to live in our units. Our company, I'm knock on wood, I'm very proud of what we've done and what we do, and I've got letters of recommendations from a number of our lenders here, if anybody would like to see those. And I'd be happy to take anybody on a tour of any number of one of our developments. We believe that this is a very quality project that we want to deliver to Shawnee. And again, the housing study that this county paid for has proven the need. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Question, Ms. Fast.
Yes, can you talk about, it says workforce housing designation. I mean, I think it's always confusing, it's low-income housing tax credits, and then you use the term affordable housing. So workforce housing, is that you have to be from 48,000 to 68,000, which some of our police, just barely fall into that range, or teachers. So this is really middle-class housing, low income.
So the tax credits are called low-income housing tax credits that are allocated from the state of Kansas, right? And they go off AMIs, average medium income for the census tract. So there's 20%, 30%, 50, 60, whatever it might be. This is a 60% AMI deal, which fits into,
So did you apply for the 60%, or you could have done lower too?
no, we applied for 60. This has always been a 60%
So are
deal.
all the, but when a developer will go to the state and say what level of AMI they want, you have that leeway?
We do. And so Kelly and I just completed a project in Tonganoxie, schoolyard townhomes. Was that 21? I'm getting old. And honestly, 50% of our tenants are police officers and teachers. So this is not a low income project.
No,
It's
I
a
mean-
workforce housing. It's
I
working.
guess the
folks.
other concern that I mentioned last time, I look, two low-income housing, their middle-class housing, workforce housing are coming off the tax roll this year. 2024, Olathe loses 4 workforce housing apartments. I mean, we're losing every year affordable housing in our county. In my area, Northeast, downtown Mission, luxury, downtown Overland Park, luxury, 95th and Metcalf, luxury, downtown Shawnee, luxury, Fairway's creating luxury. So, I mean, we're creating a lot of luxury units because, the price of construction, it's difficult to finance, but
Everybody wants to go to a restaurant, but who's going to work there if they can't find a place to live?
that is my concern.
And communities are built upon mixed incomes. That is true community, so.
And so for Johnson County to get low-income tax credits, it's been very hard. There's been a very priority for our rural. You can get USDA housing funds too in our rural. Is that correct? That it's difficult?
I don't believe that Johnson County's got a tax credit allocation in how many years, Kelly? Since 2021. So.
I mean, that is the point that I made last week, that this is a very unique project because our county, and you can't really, is that correct? Develop these projects without that tax credit, and our county's not getting it.
No, we would have to charge $1,700, $1,800 a unit in rent if we were to build these without the.
Which is why there's so many luxury.
Okay. Other questions? Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I have several comments to make because I fielded numerous phone calls over the weekend, and what I want to do is point out some things that I heard that were not truthful. And I do have several family members that live in this development. First of all, that the developer yourself, I would just like to point out some of your experience and background. You've talked about other projects. And after the last commission meeting, I did send that information around to several builders and had glowing remarks on both of you. So you're very well respected in the community. And in the building community, you can get, sometimes that's not always the case. But you've got a master's in urban development, and I think that's from KU. So that's one.
That's him. I'm a
Sorry,
reformed bartender.
Sorry,
A
Mr.
little
Myers,
different.
it's KU. You've got over 30 years of experience in workforce, attainable, affordable housing developments. There's several developers, including myself in my past life, that didn't have that much experience. I also, want to talk also about the housing committee that several of us here volunteer our time to sit on. And we hear all the time about people not being able, they're homeless, they can't afford to get an apartment, they can't afford to move into a house, and they're making $40,000 a year. And I think it's really sad. So we are talking about teachers, we're talking about police, we're talking about paras, we're talking about the people that wait on us in restaurants. And a couple things really upset me was that you were some kind of a slumlord. This is not a slum project. This is a Class A project. I also heard that that the building facade had changed. It's 3 floors, not 4. There's a swimming pool. There's a clubhouse that not only has a clubhouse, but there's an exercise gym, and there's also areas to work. So if you don't want to work in your home and you want some Wi-Fi and you just want to get away, you can go there. There's also shelter for tornadoes. I love the remote work location, because I think that's really nice. The dog walking park, this is not a cheap project. Most of the luxury apartments in around Johnson County don't have some of these amenities. The other thing that was important to me was that there's somebody on site. So you have maintenance, you have somebody on site, and you guys are committed. So I just want to make sure that everyone here, and I'll be returning phone calls to let them know there was some myth truths that were being told over the weekend. So I think that they need to know.
Thank you for your comments. I might note that the city of Shawnee has requirements for a FEMA shelter, a swimming pool for projects like this that are built. So our plan has never changed since day one. So I don't know where a lot of that noise came from. We have changed the facade materials slightly, but we do that in almost every project, but the quality and the look has not changed. So we still believe that this is going to be a great looking, awesome project, so.
Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Allenbrand's comments, and thank you for taking on this project. I think as Commissioner Fast had mentioned, and what I've learned from various developers is in Johnson County, there are really only two kinds of new construction that are profitable. That's either very large homes worth hundreds of thousands of dollars or luxury apartments. So I appreciate that you are willing to pursue the low-income housing tax credits, to pursue everything that you had to do to make this even a viable project. And what I particularly want to address is we've heard from some people that, well, this is just opening the door to all people are going to be lining up for the county to give them money. As we just discussed, these kinds of projects are not easy to fund. I don't anticipate we're going to have people lining up. And it frankly would be a good problem to have if we had that many developers wanting to do affordable housing. So
Well,
thank you.
if it's June 1st of 2022 today, we started this project 2 years ago. We already bought the ground. We're $1.8 million into this project personally today, and that's at risk. Getting an award from KHRC is difficult. It's an application process. It's competitive. But we believe in this type of housing, and frankly, we think we're fairly good at it, so we're excited to do it.
Other questions? Ms. O'Hara.
Is there any public transit access for this?
That was a comment that came up. I know that the ATA is working on bus traffic down K7, but as of today, I do not believe that there is.
And I went out and Shawnee has approved that, has approved your project. I have, and that is their business. What I am focusing on is that your request for another $1 million. The public is already $16 million into subsidizing this. And as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that for a single person, that the income ceiling is $40,680. Is that correct?
I believe it's 40.
Jessica walked me through that chart yesterday. And so this 48,000 to 60,000, I know if there's two people, it's 46,500. So where does this 48,000 to 60,000 dollars come from? And I want people to understand. I lived in the Westerfield townhouses off of Santa Fe Drive. That's where I started living in Olathe. I understand people not being able to afford housing. But when you come and you're subsidized at $16 million, which is over 50% of your project, and my daughter, who is a waitress, has her own apartment, and because of property tax increases, it has gone now from a two-bedroom apartment has gone from $1,300 to $1,500. So here we are creating the problem, and then here you come and you're asking for public money to provide this housing. It's too much. Are you saying that this project will not go forward because of this $1 million?
100% right now, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there other questions? Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions for Mr. Leipzig, if I could. Mr. Leipzig, I understand that our position on this debt is akin to having a second mortgage position. Did we consider pursuing an equity position in this arrangement?
Yes, Commissioner Ashcraft, I appreciate the question. And I might defer this to Jessica, but we are in a debt position as opposed to equity. The way the deal is structured, it just, and with the credits, it makes it difficult to change that financing into an equity position. But Jessica, can you?
Jay, that's correct. There's really nothing else to add to it. That's right, it changes the.
Okay, I'll just reiterate what you just said. If we were to go from a debt position to an equity position, it would change the structure of the loan. And that just, with the financing sources that are already in place, it wouldn't be compatible with that.
Okay. Second question.
Can I make a comment?
Excuse me, make sure when you're speaking, please come to the mic.
I might make a comment that originally when we approached the county about potential equity in this project, there were home funds that were allocated to the county. And so those were not available, so this kind of evolved into this loan with the county. But we're willing to personally guarantee it. We are willing to put it in second position. And if we were ever to sell the property or if there was a refinance or whatever, we would make sure that we took the county out first. So county's first dollar's out outside of the first mortgage before my partners and I get any money. So
Okay,
just
thank you.
thought I'd throw that out there.
I'll follow on, please. Excuse me, Mr. Leipzig. This is, for Johnson County, an inventive approach, and I commend you for thinking outside the box, but I was trying to see if it was included in the Housing Subcommittee report. Was it envisioned to be a component within the Housing Committee report? Because I've looked at it and I don't see that kind of reference.
Yes, Commissioner Ashcraft, it was envisioned. It's something we had kind of looked at, providing gap financing. We didn't particularly mention some of the details of this type of project or this type of scenario, but really the idea being the overall for gap financing to promote affordable housing is the goal, and there's a variety of ways to do that, but the gap financing model seems to be the most effective, and really on all of these projects, as in my experience level with them too, it requires a variety of funding sources. Most of them have at least 5 funding sources sometimes to put them together. A variety of different sources, and that's true for many development deals. But these are especially delicate, I think, in terms of aligning up the various funding sources and the requirements for those funding sources.
Okay. One follow-on, Mr. Chair. As I understand it, the developer approached the county or approached you in some fashion through a series of conversations. Did we ever consider any kind of competitive selection process? As Commissioner O'Hara's pointed out, it is $1 million investment, and setting aside the merits of this project, is there any competitive component to it to make sure that that $1 million is having the greatest impact possible? The 144 units is good, but would $1 million be used, could it be used elsewhere to equal that or be greater than that in terms of impacting on this population?
Commissioner Ashcraft, great question. We had actually, the Housing Subcommittee conversations, we had those type of conversations about a pilot project or parameters that could be utilized for Housing Trust Fund or some type of other revolving fund for housing. We've had those discussions, but as we've done further research on developing these, that creating that takes some time. And frankly, this one, yes, the developer had approached Housing Services about the possibility of using home funds or housing investment partnerships funds for this project. Our home funds are already allocated, and so we had kind of thinking about some creative things that we might be able to do. But that idea of a pilot program is something that I think has some merit as we move forward. You know, there again, this is a loan. It's secured with a lien. So when that money gets paid back, that money could be reutilized for other areas. It could be supplemented with additional funds as well. So I think there's a couple of different directions we could go in that regard. But
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Hensley?
Oh, I was just pointing to Commissioner Fast.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Fast?
Yeah, I just have one point, and I'm willing to make a motion at any time. Kansas has established a rural revolving loan program that's similar to this, has just established their housing trust fund. Topeka has a housing trust fund, Douglas County does. NACO, I was on a seminar. There's, I mean, a large number of counties our size has a housing trust fund. So this is not a typical, we just don't, like I said, Topeka, Kansas started that's just for rural areas, that rural revolving loan program. And so anyways, at some point I'll make the motion, Chairman.
All right, other questions? Mr. Myers?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to mention I have comments to make, but I know we're going to allow residents or people in the audience to be able to make comment, and I was going to make my remarks after that.
Okay, all right. Others? Ms. O'Hara?
Okay, so this question is for Jessica. How many vouchers are you anticipating will be used for this 144-unit apartment?
We do not have a number in mind.
Because I went out on the website and it said for right now that the program is closed. So I'm confused about that. Is that because there's no units available?
So we opened our wait list in April to accept application, and we received almost 700 applicants. We are required by HUD to work through all of those applicants before we reopen.
Is there a specific area in Johnson County that typically these families are wanting to locate?
We have a large number, and I'm going to kind of turn back to David as well. We have a large number in Shawnee, in Lenexa, in Overland Park. That's it, and that's all. And of course, Olathe, I'll just remind the commission that Olathe runs their own housing authority,
Right.
and so they have an allocation of their own vouchers for
Okay,
Olathe.
and so, I mean, this is in far western Shawnee, and there's no transit out into that area yet. And so let's just say that if there's 70 units that is leased by the people with the vouchers, then the other 74, will they be rented at market? And how do we? I'm curious as to how those are priced if it's rented to someone who does not have those vouchers.
So I will ask Jason to come up as well, but every unit, because of a function of that tax credit, is that every unit in this development must be rented at 60%. It cannot be rented at market rate.
Okay, so we're going to have people that do not qualify under the requirements. One person, the limit on the income is $40,680.
Yes, correct.
And if there's two people, the limit is $46,500. So if there's other people that are making more than that, they will still have the lower rent. Is that correct? So somebody could be making $80,000 a year income and rent the apartment and get the subsidized?
No, they cannot. No, that's the function of the HUD rent limit, is that you cannot exceed $40,680 as a one-person household to live in this development.
So if someone that doesn't have a voucher, they still have to adhere to these income.
That's correct.
Yes. Requirements. So For one person, it's 40,680. For two people, it's 46,500. And then what's, if there's three?
I'm sorry, I have it in my phone. I'm not sending a text message. I'm checking my phone for that. Three-person is 52,320.
52,000?
320.
Okay, 52,320. Okay, so, so there's still the income limitations. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, at this time, we'll turn to the public comment portion.
Chairman.
Jay, did you
I'm
you have a
sorry,
comment?
as the clerk, I would like to please ask for a break. I need it for my team, please.
Okay, all right. We'll take a 5-minute break and then come back and begin the public comment portion. At this time, we will reconvene from our recess and turn to the public comment portion of anyone who wishes to address the commission on the item that's before us. So, do we have individuals who have signed up?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's begin.
In person,
Again,
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Again, I should caution 2 minutes, and if you run over that time, I'm required to intervene, so keep that in mind. Thank you.
Chairman, pre-registered, we have Carol Houtman. Carol Houtman. And I do apologize if I
Welcome back to the
misstate.
podium.
Thank you. My name is Carol Hotman. I live in Shawnee at 7402 Meadow Heights Drive. I've lived there since 2005 and am a tax-paying member of Shawnee and Johnson County. I'm proud to be here. First of all, I don't envy you because I know there's an awful lot of people that come to you with their hands out asking for money and asking for donations. I am just very concerned that a business that is as reputable as the speaker is that just spoke would be asking for $1 million. I would think that he would have the wherewithal to have that kind of money without coming to the county and the cities. Right now, if you had extra money, I would ask that you would start thinking about how to help our elementary schools be more safe versus, based on what we just experienced down in Texas, we need to figure out how to make these schools more safe. $1 million would go a long way to helping that. That was not the primary reason that I came here, though. Primary reason for me is I am so very concerned about the traffic on K7 and 75th Street. In the years that I have lived there, there have been so many accidents. And there has been report after report that they're going to do this change, and they're going to do this change and this overpass, and nothing has happened in 15 years. And you're going to add 144 units potentially, and particularly since there's no transit available, add more traffic coming into that area, with K7 still being that unpatrolled, fixed, that it will be safer. It is so dangerous. I haven't counted all of the accidents, but there have been a lot of them, and there have been major injuries as well. I watched a woman sit on the side of the road and bawl her eyes out because her mother had died there. And she was watching the traffic go by, and she said, no wonder this is a problem. So before we ever consider bringing in a facility with 144 units, please get that road fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Now we have Kate Capps. Kate Capps.
Good morning, almost afternoon. My name is Kate Capps. I live at 7908 West 96th Street in Overland Park. And I'm here because I am passionate about the issue of affordable housing and homelessness, because there are people in our county who are facing eviction or homelessness due to situations like the one Commissioner Hanslick described in her statement, in her, what am I trying to say? Her document. The woman in Shawnee who will be homeless at the end of June because her apartment has changed management and will no longer accept housing vouchers. I am aware of a couple of cases where apartment management is not renewing leases because they are renovating their apartments, making them luxury apartments, and then they are raising the rent beyond the current tenant's ability to pay. So these people are going to be without affordable housing. This housing that we're talking about could accommodate them. One case isn't a low-income voucher tenant, but it's someone's grandmother. And she moved here to be close to her children and her grandchildren, and she, and this is happening to her. She has very little flexibility in her budget, and she's going to be out on the street. Now, I don't think her children will let that happen, but she'd be a very good neighbor in Shawnee. I'd be pleased to have as a neighbor. Any one of us may have a family member or friend who is rent burdened despite the fact that they are working. The Hedge Lane apartment project will give people a leg up toward financial stability and a stride away from the possibility of becoming homeless. There appears to be a lot of open space surrounding the intersection at 75th Street and K7. Surely there is room for a modest apartment complex. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Now I have Brian Hogan. Brian Hogan.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Brian Hogan, and I live at 9819 Kessler Street in Overland Park. I'm presenting this statement on behalf of the Homelessness Task Force of the Good Faith Network. The Good Faith Network has been coming to recent Board of County Commissioners meetings to provide public comment so as to stimulate conversation and hope that as a community we can come together to decide to roll up our sleeves and get to work on needed resources, which certainly includes housing resources. We see creation of affordable housing as a correct strategy for the prevention of homelessness. We are here to speak in favor of the use of a term-limited loan for development of a 144-unit apartment complex that would create affordable and suitable housing, that during the lifetime of the loan will accept rent payments which are compatible with housing choice voucher payment standards. The Good Faith Network strongly supports this project, and in this statement, we are asking for our commissioners' affirmative support of this creatively financed housing solution. We see this as an example for how Johnson County can come together to solve a problem that was made also obvious in the recent housing study that was produced by UCS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Maureen H. Shaver. Maureen H. Shaver.
Good morning.
Morning.
First of all, thank you for all of your
Would
time
you
and
state your name and
brainpower
address, please?
that you give to our community. I'm a grandmother, and our neighbor children call me Nana, and that's why I'm here. I'm an advocate for children everywhere. When I am looking at these plans, all I see is buildings and parking, cement. Where are the parks within the walking distance? Where are the schoolyards in the walking distance? Where are the play yards in the walking distance? Where is the open spaces in the walking distance? Green spaces, these are the grasses and trees and shrubs and open areas for children to play. Most parents will agree that we want their children to have physically healthy, well-rounded, independent, and compassionate individuals. And the best way to install these qualities in your kids is to inspire them to spend more time outside. Encouraging children to spend more time in the outdoors and away from technology aids gives them physical well-being and helps them to improve their emotional and intellectual health too. There's no denying the benefits of playing outdoor games and stepping away from the screen and into the sunshine. I am concerned that these children have no place to play. Yes, there is a swimming pool, but swimming pools are only open 3 months out of the year. As compared to the other 9 months, where are these children going to go? In my neighborhood, you see parents driving their children everywhere because there are no recreation facilities available anywhere in that area. Please, consider the children that are being housed without access to recreation facilities, and all they have is cement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have Rebecca Shipley. Rebecca Shipley.
Good morning again. Rebecca Shipley. You have my address on file. Kind of off the cuff, I've made a ton of notes. I think this is a noble project. I really think they've done their research. I've been before you before talking about affordable housing, and I also believe this county has created this problem, as I spoke to before. through excessive taxation. You've created it, and now you have excessive taxes that you're willing to pay for it. My problem is that my tax dollars are now being treated as if you are a bank making a very poor investment with 0% interest with our tax dollars. It comes down strictly to that. If they can personally guarantee the loan, then why don't they personally go get the money and make that investment personally? I don't understand where we are going to set a precedent as a county to make these loans at 0% interest with a $10,000 payment per year for 15 years and a balloon payment to be looked at down in 15. I bought my parents' company 20 years ago. I didn't get that kind of thing from them. I had to pay market value interest. The same thing needs to be thought of here. If Johnson County money is the last resort that they have to structure their loan, it needs to come with an interest payment. I don't believe gifting that money is a good value for the taxpayer funding it. Not to mention that Kansas state funds are going toward this too. So the taxpayer is investing all of this, carries most of the risk, but the 10% of this company is going to get the profit. That is not how this can be structured, please. It is disrespectful to every taxpayer that is making this possible. I ask that you, if it has to be a loan, it come with a market value interest rate. $1 million today, as you can see through this inflation, is not going to be $1 million in 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have Abby Rowie. Abby Rowie.
Good morning. Abby Roy, 7312 Meadows Sweet Lane in the Crystal Place subdivision. First of all, Jessica had said she wasn't sure how many vouchers were going to be used. Let me assure you that's probably a smokescreen for 100% voucher apartments. First of all, I'm not sure how we got here. Was this a lottery and the developer won it? How was he chosen? What was the process? Did he ask for it and you're just going to give it to him? I think once you got your hand caught in the cookie jar, you would quickly called it a pilot program. So where's the oversight? So many questions. I'm so disappointed in the process. I really don't trust a developer that tells a Shawnee City Council and citizens that it's for teachers, firemen, and policemen. Let's call it what it is, Section 8. Let me be clear. If a teacher or a policeman or a fireman don't already have a low-income voucher, they cannot live there because they will not qualify. So the smoke screen is just that. It's a smoke screen. Where is the playground? I have the same question. If there's going to be a lot of children there, are they going to play on the concrete? To me, that clubhouse looked very vanilla. Our homes range from $400,000 to $650,000 a block away from this. So I don't want to drive by something that looks so vanilla. I've heard some rumors this morning that there was a meeting that we all could have attended. There was no meeting. We knew nothing of this. We just woke up one morning, read the newspaper, thank goodness, and saw this was going on. And is this developer still going to own this property in 15 years and still be responsible for what's going on? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Joe Rari. Joe Rari.
Joe Roy, DeSoto, Kansas. A few things. I'm a developer in DeSoto. I own a lot of commercial properties there. And I'm looking for $1 million also. I want to build a retirement community. I just finished a 19-house subdivision, and I'm a little guy, and I could use the $1 million to do that, to help DeSoto. These big corporations that want to come in here and get $1 million from you, On a $30 million project, $1 million is nothing. So him saying that this project won't go through without this million, I have a hard time believing it. But at the same time, I don't think Johnson County, Kansas wants to open up a national bank. But I'm going to come and get my plans, and I'm going to come to Johnson County, and I'm going to ask for the same thing. So I just want to be sure that everybody is treated the same. So big corporation, a little guy. I employ 40 people, union wages in DeSoto, Kansas. Okay? I just want to be sure that, you know, with the properties that I have, I pay the county $100,000 in taxes every single year. You know, I just want to be sure that if you open this up, that it gets to the small guy, because the small guy needs it a lot more than a corporation does. So I will be coming with a set of plans for this project in DeSoto, because I'm all for affordable housing, all for it. But I will be coming to see you if you have him, if you give it to him. I hope I'm next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Jane Kanoki. Jane Kanoki.
Good morning again, Jane Kanoki. I gave you my address previously. I wrote you 2 letters. One was on my perspective of being a volunteer for Johnson County Interfaith Hospitality Network. I hope you had a chance to read that. It houses the situationally homeless. And the other was my take as being a resident there in Crystal Place. I've been there too, also since 2005. And I wanted to talk about our IHN ones. Once the guests have paid off their prior evictions or utility bills, they begin to save for a place of their own. Finding affordable housing is difficult in Johnson County. The more you can do as county commissioners to provide lower cost housing options, the easier it is for our situationally homeless to transition back to productive tax-paying citizens of our county. Please support the $1 million financing for Hedge Lane Terrace Apartments as a pilot program that can be expanded to $10 million, $20 million annual partnership for more affordable housing in Johnson County. I loved the idea that we have a kickstart opportunity in DeSoto. So please approve this loan and take the next step to develop and authorize a plan to provide more funding support for workforce housing or low-income retirement. I don't see any way in our subdivision that our home values will be negatively affected. I didn't know we went up to 600K. How about that? We are living in a county that has no inventory of homes, and so demand is outpacing the market supply. Now, I know a lot of people, or a few people in subsidized housing, and they're good people, and I don't think we'll have any problems there. So I would ask that you, because I'm sure that most of you as county commissioners are familiar or have had in your own business past been the recipient of some kind of tax abatement or tax incentive benefit, not to look at this and be envious or greedy. So please fund this program.
Thank you.
Now we have Maria Holiday. Maria Holiday.
I'm Maria Holiday. I live at 7647 Hemlock in Overland Park. So many things for 2 minutes. I thought it was asinine 3 weeks ago when we decided to approve $150,000 to do a study to see if we were getting paid enough here. And here we are, $1 million of tax-free money to a developer to build affordable income housing. I'm a realtor. I understand the shortage of affordable housing in Johnson County, and I have no problem with the development doing that. But I don't want to pay for it because I don't get rent from that. If I want to invest in housing in Kansas City or in Johnson County, I go buy something. And so far, I haven't got anything interest-free. The idea that this is over a $30 million project, they've already received $16 million, in tax incentives, but they can't do it if they don't get another $1 million of interest-free money. There's a word for that. It's called a shakedown. And I find it very interesting that Sunflower Development is the same development company that's working on a solar farm, that's working on a non-disclosure battery plant that's coming out, and now low-income, affordable housing apartments. Exactly what's the connection here with Sunflower Development and Polsinelli, and how many people here behind the dais have a commitment to this group instead of a commitment to their constituents? When November rolls around, and those of you sitting in the room aren't making any income and your inflation is going up and you're not making any money on this, I want you to remember you should go and vote, and I'll be on that ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Swords, Sunflower Development Group.
We will wait until the public comment period is concluded. Thank you. Is there someone else?
Yes, we have Amber, I think it's Sims. Amber Sims, thank you.
Amber Sims, I live at 7337 Kenton in the neighborhood next to the development. I am a proponent of low income. I understand we need it. I am a manager with Costco Wholesale. I work for a company, though, that actually pays their employees enough to not require them to need vouchers to afford housing in Johnson County. I am frustrated, though, that we continually tout this as a project that will bring us housing for our firefighters and our teachers and our police officers, but yet when I check the Shawnee City website, I can see that the firefighter wage prices them out of qualifying for this housing. I can see that the entry-level teacher in USD 232, where these kids will go, prices them out of living in this housing. I see that the police officers' entry-level first-year recruit prices them out of living in this housing. So if we could all just be honest about the type of project this actually is, it's not necessarily, you know, to bring firefighters and teachers and police officers someplace to live. They're not going to qualify. It's frustrating. We don't have parks. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have anything until you walk into our neighborhood, and then we have the sidewalks and the green space and the yards and everything else. In their plans, they don't have any equipment for the kids to play on, as she pointed out, the other 9 months of the year. There is a cemetery across the street, actually two, which is a very convenient place for those people to go play. And it's also a very convenient place to put in the low-income housing because there's not a lot of people to complain about it. We've got one neighborhood right next door. This same group had tried to do an apartment complex in the city of Shawnee that they voted down and then changed to the townhomes. That had the infrastructure, it had the transit, it had the retail, it had the work. And they voted that out in Shawnee and now crammed it off to the west where there's a lot less people to complain about it. I'm fine with it, but I don't see how in 15 years that $850,000 balloon payment will get passed on to somebody else.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chair, that completes our list that have pre-registered or signed up before the meeting.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this item? Yes.
My name is Danelle Marsden. I'm 7310 Kenton in Shawnee, right in the same subdivision as many others have spoken. I am an educator of 28 years. I have worked with low-income families my entire career. I have no problem with affordable housing in our Shawnee and in our neighborhoods. What my problem is providing $1 million loan to a project of a developer, as many have already spoken, that we are now becoming a bank in Johnson County, as others have said as well. I'm repeating what others have said, but you all have to understand that that is not okay. My husband owns a company as well. When we started that company, we went to a banking institution. We didn't come to Johnson County, Kansas and ask you for the $1 million. That is ludicrous to think of, that as a taxpayer, I'm going to turn around and give and take that money back that I've already paid you. This makes no sense at all. We are not a banking institution. If they can't handle their own development, they need to go somewhere else. They need to go and find a banking institution wherever they can, but they don't need to be coming to Johnson County. And number two, what others have also said is that the infrastructure cannot handle. I know Shawnee went ahead and approved it. Shawnee approved it in '99 under the assumption, part of it being under the assumption, and you were there, that we were supposed to be having some sort of a bridge going over 75th Street. Right now, we cannot handle the infrastructure of 144 units coming in. There is no transit. You've heard this. Have any of you ever even been over there except for Charlotte to find out, and Jim, to find out exactly what the neighborhoods look like? Jeff, excuse me. Has anybody gone over there but those two? Have you even looked at it? It is not going to handle the infrastructure of these homes, period. The green space is important. The fact that the schools are crowding is important. Have we thought about any of these other domino effects when we're going to go ahead and give a developer $1 million? Thank you.
Thank you. Was there someone else? Okay.
Sir, come up to the podium, please, and state your name and address.
Good afternoon. I'm Fred Shoemaker. I live at 7150 Hedge Lane Terrace. I'm on the board at Town and Country, which is 45 buildings down the street from this proposal. 180 units, and the majority of the people in our group are against it. I noticed that 2 of the people or 3 that are for it don't live in the area. Well, that makes good sense. But I'm concerned about everything that was mentioned before, so I won't repeat it. Like, no place for the kids to play. I've lived on Hedge Lane Terrace for 12 years. I've dodged kids going up Hedge Lane Terrace that live on the project on the west side in duplexes. They don't have any place to go either, and now we can add to it. But my main concern for Town and Country is the small creek. If you look at the pictures of what it's going to be, most of the ground is going to be parking lot and buildings. The water is going to run off at a great rate. It's going to end up down in that little creek, which goes through our detention basin at the west end of Hedge Lane Terrace, and God knows if it'll flood or not. Has anyone done a study to see about water runoff that's going to happen? You know, I haven't heard any of this. I've been in Shawnee for 12 years, and Shawnee likes to put out things and then solve the problem later when they happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
My name's Bob Bridges. I also live at Town and Country Villas. My main concern is the lack of support services for the type of people that will be using or living in this project. There are better places where there's libraries and there's grocery stores and within walking distance. This is a landlocked piece of property. And like everybody else has talked about, the accessibility moving in and out of that property is very dangerous. And so all of us are concerned about that. So maybe this property could be better used in the county in a better way. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, if there's no one else to be heard, that concludes the public comment portion in regard to this agenda item. It is back before the commission. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. I know Mr. Swords looked like he wanted to come up and
Yes, excuse me.
reply to an item.
There was some question, as I recall.
I just
about
wanted to say, I know
sunflower.
nothing about solar farms or ammunition plants. It's the wrong sunflower. So it's not us.
Let me verify, your name of the business Sunflower is not associated with the old ammunition plant or any.
I get a call once a week for somebody asking me what I'm going to do with an ammunition plant, and I don't even know where it is, I'll be honest with you. So it's the name
I just wanted to verify that
No,
there was
it's
no
correct.
relationship.
whatsoever.
The Sunflower is a popular name, I would say, for the state of Kansas. Thank you. Mr. Meyer.
Thank you, Chair. As you can imagine, I've responded to many phone calls, many emails, and tried to respond that this was a City of Shawnee development and plan, and it was approved. And I don't like to get real deep into the City of Shawnee's actions, because our action today is whether or not to approve this loan or not. But I will say that some of the comments that have been made are just not factual from a standpoint of the city and their process that they've gone through to approve this project. You know, as I think the IRBs were approved in 2021, and that was on a 8-0 vote. And in fact, I think the person that made the motion was Mr. Jenkins. So, you know, if the city is going through processes and they're not understanding what their votes are pertaining to, then that could be an issue. But again, I don't want to get into those weeds. I will say, and I've had a lot of experience with the city of Shawnee from the standpoint of being a previous mayor and a previous councilman for 22 years of my life. I've always been the person that said, if you have somebody that's coming in and following rules and following the policies and doing everything that is required the right way, then that development should be looked at in a positive direction. Again, I used to go over this with council members many, many times. If we don't like the rules or the regulations or the policies that we have, we need to change them. But we shouldn't take a person that's coming into our community to do a project that's following rules and regulations and then turn around and say, this shouldn't be happening. As far as this loan is concerned, this development is meeting the Board of County Commissioners' strategic priorities. We've talked about this many, many times. The need for workforce housing is definitely something that we have discussed and understand the need for. You know, when it comes to a lot of the other things that were brought up to us as a commission, again, those are city-related items. But from a county standpoint, this loan, in my mind, sitting here, I look at it as being, again, a fully secured, guaranteed loan that has no risk, or if there is any risk, extremely low risk to a county taxpayer. And so when it comes to these types of situations, and I've tried to think somewhere in the county where this same type of situation is available or in the county, I haven't heard of it. When we have others that want the same type of consideration, again, I would hope the same kind of consideration would be apples to apples. So I'm sorry if this process, which has gone on for many years, like I say, I knew that this property was zoned for apartments because it's been zoned that way since 1999. I can't remember when the actual homes in Crystal Place were approved, but that was all part of the city plan at that time, and that's why there are an area for apartments, an area for duplexes, and then single-family homes, and of course we have the townhomes down towards 67th Street. So from a county standpoint, and this loan that we are discussing, you know, I don't know if people were upset at the city when they did the IRBs and were marching into the council chambers and saying this shouldn't take place. But it did take place, and now we're talking about a loan. And I think someone else has said, how many people have not been in a situation, which I haven't, but how many people that run a business or whatever haven't tried to seek to be able to execute their project, but not seeking out monies to help them complete and execute what, again, I believe and I understand it to be a Class A apartment complex that's going to have amenities, maintenance on site, maintenance escrow, anything that Class A apartments would have the expectation of having. So those are my comments at this time, and as far as being for this type of loan being granted, and again, I do look at this as sort of a pilot because it's the first time the county has been put in a position to look at this type of situation. But I'm in favor of proceeding with this loan.
All right, let's get a motion on the floor. Commissioner Fast, you indicated that you had a motion.
Yes, I move to consider authorizing a $1 million investment in Hedge Lane Apartments, a 144-unit low-income housing
Mr.
tax
Fast,
credit.
that's not the motion. Sorry.
Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah, here we go. Here, let me just hand it to you.
Oh, they changed it. Okay, sorry. I move to authorize a $1 million investment structured as a non-interest-bearing deferred mortgage lien with a 15-year term and affordability period in Hedge Lane Apartments. Annual principal reduction payments in the amount of $10,000 shall be made at the end of years 1 through 14, with the remaining principal balance repayable at the end of year 15.
Second, Hanslick.
Commissioner made the motion to approve the recommendation in regards to the loan to the project. Hanslick seconded the motion. You know, I would simply say this, a couple of things. You know, amenities for housing development, apartments, whatever, that's up to the city. That's not the county's jurisdiction. I mentioned that earlier. And I do recall, I think that in late 2021, the city of Shawnee reviewed this application and in fact agreed to IRB bonds or IRBs, which give certain tax breaks to the developer. So as far as the dollars that would be used in this loan, those dollars come from the federal government. Now, we all pay taxes to the federal government, I understand that. But it's all part of the recovery from the pandemic. And last year in 2021, I mentioned earlier, we allocated money to private businesses, to nonprofits, and to organizations because of the pandemic. And so the money that we will use for a loan is a community investment, and it's federal dollars that come to us because of the pandemic. I would encourage anybody to read the briefing sheet that's been presented to the commission. There is a requirement, a series of requirements that would need to be present for any future activity of this kind, a loan. So if that's something that somebody wants to check out, look at those requirements. In this particular case, they've already received tax credits from the state. And I understand there are no more tax credits. They've all been used for the period when this solicitation was made. So I am supportive of the motion and will vote in favor. Other comments? Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm hoping that we all have an appointment on the transit board, and so I'm hoping that we reach out to Josh, because that could be a possibility when we look at that, to have transit going there. And then I'm hoping somebody does reach out, because it is the roads over there. I'm over there 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm hoping, because I think that's also highway roads, so they do need to look at that. But
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few comments, if I may, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wanted to thank Commissioner Myers for his impassioned perspective. I think it was well said. I think it goes to the point of ends versus means. I think we probably all understand the ends, and there are noble ends, but the means becomes the discussion point, which it should. And this particular discussion is an outgrowth of the subcommittee report, and this is the first of many fiscal notes that will probably come forward, not just this year, but for years to come, and they will be potentially extremely significant. I did have a few particular questions for Mr. Sword, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. Swords, if I,
yes, sir.
if I could. Mr. Swords, thank you for your presentation and your effort. It's obvious that you're very determined and dedicated to this, and your commitment to this effort is noteworthy, and I thank you for it. I had a couple of questions, and I believe I am looking at your most recent pro forma. It's dated April 21st, 2000. I was told that was current.
It's very, very close, yes, sir.
Okay, well, a couple of clarifications, if we could. I was looking at the fund uses and contingency. You had 1.4 million and change, and then you had startup costs, reserves, and escrows of 1.3 million and change. And we've had some references to some amenities, and I not seen a line item for those amenities. So could you elaborate on why those particular amounts for the contingencies and the reserves? And when you're talking about amenities, I mean, there are swimming pools, and then there are swimming pools.
Sure, so
There are dog parks.
the swimming pool and the amenities are contained within the hard construction budget. In the soft construction budget, you'll see FF&E for the fitness equipment and patio furniture and so on and so forth for like that. On the contingency plan, with the way construction costs are going today, in the last 18 months, we've seen increases between 16 to 18%. So our lenders require us to put a contingency in there to adjust for any material increases or unforeseen conditions. We're pretty unique here that this has been a vacant piece of ground. There's been nothing built there before. We've done a good job with our geotech and understanding it. So I would hope that we don't use a great deal of that, but with the market, the construction market the way it is, it's hard to predict. In the escrows and the startup costs, so that's paying our superintendents to get them up to speed, and the 2.5 leasing people that we'll have on site, paying salaries early, getting their offices set up, letting them do tours, and starting the marketing of the process. And then the escrows is a dollar that our lender and KHRC requires. So we put money in reserves for a rainy day, and we add to that every month. And then in order to access those dollars, we have to agree with the state of Kansas on what we can use those dollars for. So it's in case there's a sink pit or something. I don't know. It's a rainy day fund, but we add to it every year, and we hope that we don't touch it. But there's also adequate dollars in our budget for maintenance, make-readies, the superintendents, and the daily maintenance of the property. We will not allow this property to fall into disrepair at all.
But you do not have a line item for the amenities. You don't have an amount in mind.
I don't have that sheet in front of me, but if you give me just 1 second. Mine's more detailed.
Oh, good, good.
I apologize. So our amenity item is 2 seconds, sorry. There we go. $680,000.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions or comments? Ms. Hanslick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had two other questions to help me clarify a couple things, maybe for either Mr. Leipzig or Mr. Swords. But first of all, I just want to clarify that I heard this $1 million investment loan will actually yield $3 million in property taxes from this development once it's developed. Is that approximately accurate?
Yes, Commissioner, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is, it is not unusual for governments to provide funding to support housing developments for people who've been identified as needing those kinds of housing in communities. I'm thinking we have a whole department at the federal level called Housing and Urban Development, and I know as the former CEO at Safe Home Domestic Violence Agency, we received a lot of grants. They were not loans, they were grants, outright grants to help us house people in our community. At the state level, we have many funds that are helping. In fact, right now, we have the Kansas Homeowners Assistance Fund that's helping people, probably like the folks that realtors are working with who are having a problem paying their mortgage or their property taxes. So this is not an unusual situation where a government is helping to promote and a development for affordable housing. And in fact, it's kind of unusual that it's a loan instead of an outright grant or payment. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes, Commissioner, I'd be happy to. It is unique in that the fact that what makes this project, and when you look at the parameters in the briefing sheet, is the tax credits are already secured. That's what makes this very unique. I mean, as I mentioned, and you just elaborated on too, there's a variety of funding sources for these projects, and one of the parameters we have is that those other funding sources must be in place, and those tax credits are very difficult to obtain. And I mean, that is something in itself makes it unique, but this is actually quite common in terms of providing additional gap financing for these type of projects. This is generally how because there has to be, especially when you have a housing market that is as tight and as vibrant as Johnson County's, where you have limited supply, you have wages that are pushing that demand. And obviously, people want to live in the community, so there's a scarcity. And so any financial mechanism that can be used to try to keep those rents as low as possible, and it usually comes from a variety of different sources. And as I said, I think what makes this project unique, all the parameters or all the housing pieces have to be in place, and that the tax credits are already secured.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Swords, I'm sorry, and I don't know if you're prepared to answer this or not, but I would think you would be. And
Gosh, I hope so after you set me up like that.
well, I think there's residents. Another item was brought up, and I think when we have this situation, we have residents here, for them to actually hear some of the concerns that they have be addressed, I think that's helpful. The one item that I've heard that was hasn't been addressed that maybe you could, that was a concern, is the creek. Can you give?
Sure. So Johnson County wastewater, they can be a little slow and a little, we deal with them all the time, but they've approved our stormwater retention plan. And actually, the way the ground slopes to the east, this had been planned for that. There had been some infrastructure put in prior to us buying the ground. So Johnson County wastewater has been great. They've approved the permit, and we should be good to go. Should have no water issues.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner O'Hara.
Jessica? I need a tutorial.
I don't have that with me.
And Commissioner Fast said that you are the one to give it to me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Oh, I said David.
well, I asked David, and David referred me to
Oh,
Jessica.
I'll do my best.
You're on.
I'll do my best.
Okay, so on the vouchers.
Yes, ma'am.
The people that are approved for the vouchers, do they have additional issues like developmental disabilities? What are these vouchers for? What population are these vouchers for?
The program is for people who qualify as low income at the 30% AMI level. And that number I don't have right offhand because it's not part of the development's 60% structure. But it is for folks who hit that 30% band that HUD sets for the income limit.
Okay, because Commissioner Fast had just mentioned that many people that are that are receiving these vouchers and that are on the waiting list, that they have other, and it's not just income, but they have other challenges.
Sometimes they do.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're looking at this population that perhaps has these additional challenges, and that it's a concern of mine that where this is located, that this population that has the access to vouchers, that they're not going to really be the population that this apartment complex is going to be addressing, because there is no amenities within walking distance. 7 Highway, what's the speed limit on 7 Highway there? 55 miles an hour?
Well,
65? Well, and so that intersection at 75th Street and 7 Highway, I mean, it's dangerous. And so what I'm starting to think that this development, yes, it's going to have requirements on the income levels. And as I stated, it's going to be $40,680 for a single person, $46,500 for 2 people, and then $52,320. But it doesn't look to me that this is really going to be addressing the folks on the vouchers. And on the vouchers, do they get, if there's money involved with the vouchers, so I'm in this program, I have a voucher, I take it to the developers and say, I want to live here. So what, does that voucher give them money so that my rent is even less than what the published rents are?
So the Housing Choice Voucher program is structured so that a person who has a housing choice voucher would go to a landlord, and that landlord, if they accept it, our side of the equation from housing services is we do a calculation of that person's income, and rule of thumb, this is general for the program, that person pays 30% of their income for their rent.
Okay.
Okay?
It's
So-
basically a rent reduction.
Right. And then we, as housing services, through the HUD program of Housing Choice Voucher, we supplement the balance of that rent.
Okay. Okay, so the subsidy comes from HUD.
It does.
Okay, so again, because of where this is located, I'm going to, it will be interesting to see if this is actually the population that is going to be served. I'll be very interested in that. But back to what the real issue here is this is $1 million interest-free loan. And there are no rules. There are no regulations. There are no policies. This is simply reacting to a request. And I think that this is putting the cart before the horse, that we needed to have a structure in place. And when I brought this up last week, suddenly, okay, well, this is going to be a pilot program. And the city of Shawnee has approved this. I have, that is a done deal. But the issue here is if the county is going to set a precedent without having anything in place, that we're going to set a precedent of loaning $1 million interest-free. This is setting a new precedence. This is an entitlement. This is free money. And to have payments of less than $1,000 a month, and absolutely at the end of 15 years, $1 million might be worth $400,000. I mean, who knows? The inflation rate is horrible. And I understand, I'm from the construction industry. I understand how these costs spiral out of control. I understand that. But they have a plan in place. They are a for-profit organization, and it's not up to us to provide them $1 million interest-free. We're going to have people lined up, and rightfully so.
Thank you.
Oh,
Again,
one more thing. The $3 million in property taxes, that apartment complex is going to require services from the county. That is not $3,000 of profit from property taxes to the county. That is like everybody else is paying property taxes. And apartments pay at the assessed valuation at 11.5% like every other residential piece of property. So that would be like saying that any of these folks here that live right in that neighborhood, that their property taxes, that their property taxes are just gravy for the county, and it's not. They are requiring services. That is the gap in every one of these tax incentives, and this isn't a tax incentive, but loans and whatever, is that you don't recognize that these projects require services, just like everybody else. And this is not just $3 million coming to the county without any costs. There's going to be a lot of costs.
okay, thank you. Well, again, I would encourage anyone who has the interest to read the briefing sheet. There are guidelines for this type of specific activity that need to be followed. So, Ms. Fast.
Yes, I just want to talk about those guidelines and everybody lining up. Last year, only 12 communities, only 12 projects across the state got a low-income housing tax credit. Year before, only 9, all of them in rural areas. The year before, all in rural areas. It could be another 5 years before Johnson County gets a low-income tax credit project. So people are not going to be lining up. It's a statewide competitive program, and I know you were concerned about that, Commissioner Ashcraft. So it's very difficult. And the new legislation is that these low-income tax credits go to very rural areas. So it could be years before we have a low-income tax credit project. So let's, and the state allocates. Kansas has not allocated very much money to these projects, as in Missouri. And the Kansas City, Missouri, they have 7 low-income tax credit projects. So I think, we just, that is the criteria, and those are very few awarded across the state of Kansas. And I would call for a vote, Chairman. It is 12:30.
Okay, I will do that after Mr. Ashcraft had asked a comment.
Th-
Then we'll have the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there's been a lot of good discussion, lots of issues raised. I am going to focus on what I think is before this body, and that is the $1 million loan. And after looking at the pro forma and listening to the discussion, I do not see a compelling reason to give this loan and commit the county at this time for this amount of money. So my vote will reflect that concern.
Okay, thank you. All right, the motion is before us. The clerk will please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
No.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
No?
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 5 votes in favor, 2 votes opposed. The motion carried. Thank you all very much for your participation today. I know there are various opinions in regards to issues like this. Thank you for your input. Are there any other items on the regular action agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's take another short break and we'll come back for reports and communications. And I'm going to ask the county manager to make those as brief as possible.